Hi, this is Lorraine Watry, and I am going to do a video on the new Daniel Smith watercolor travel cases. I was sent three of the sets from Daniel Smith, and I thought that there might be other artists that would like to kind of hear about them and see a little more about them. And since I haven't really explored them yet, either, I am going to just give you my first impressions. So the bigger set that I was sent is called the Ultimate Mixing, and it has both a set that has a full set of colors of the Daniel Smith paints in it, 15 colors, and then it also has the container that is just empty, and you can put whatever paints you'd like in there. And I really like that option, first of all. So in this set, let's see, pull this out. They have the two cases. And my first impression of the cases is they're a really nice size. They're easy to hold, not very thick, so you could easily fit them in a bag or a pocket. And they hold quite a bit of color. Upon trying to open them, they are a little bit tougher to open, and but I think that's somewhat getting just used to the best way to open them. And then this is the case that is just the empty pans. And the one thing that I liked about the way that this is set up is that the little half pans just sit right down in a pre sculpted plastic form. So they're not going to slide around like some other travel palettes might. And the other option is you could literally just pour your paint right into this container. So if you don't even want to mess around with a little half pan, then you could do that. And the other thing that is, I think, very useful for these cases is that I could fill these with a whole batch of colors, and then if I decide that I want to use maybe 5 colors from here and 5 from here, they're very easy to swap. And so I thought that's a really nice idea. The case itself doesn't have any dividers in the area where you can do mixing, and but it seems I'm used to a really big mixing area when I'm mixing my paint, so I am not bothered that it doesn't have dividers. The only thing that I noticed about the case is that I think to paint with it, I would probably have to hold it this direction because of the fact, and maybe just keep the wells of paint in my hand, because the lid, if you notice, if you hold it this way, the lid is tipped. It doesn't quite lay flat. And my one thought to Daniel Smith would be if they could adjust the lid at this back edge, remove just a little bit of that plastic so that the lid would lay flat. But I really like just basically the compactness, and so that part of it is really good, and I can deal with the fact that I might hold it this way. Plus the weight of the palette setup is on that hand that's holding it then too. It does feel sturdy. It doesn't feel like it's going to, if you put some pressure on there, that it's going to fall or break or any of that. So there's that one. And I wanted to try putting some paint in and see how much it will hold. This is Green Apatite Genuine, one of Daniel Smith's Primatech pigments, and it is a natural earth pigment. And I love this color, so I wanted to see how much it would hold. This is a 15 milliliter tube, and it hasn't been opened before, so hopefully it won't squeeze out all over the place, because I live in a high altitude, so I guess it's been here long enough it didn't. And the one thing that I read about the Daniel Smith pre-poured pigments that they have in these cases is that they are poured in 3 steps. And so the well of paint is going to be nice and full. There's shouldn't be any real big gaps or anything. And that paint that I just put in there, I would probably have to let sit for a little while, make sure that it's kind of full in there once it's started to dry, and that may be used, I'm guessing, maybe 1/8 of my tube of paint, but that would be plenty for quite a while out painting. So, and it might use them a little more if I waited to see if it needed to, if it shrunk down when it's drying. So I will move this one aside for now. And so in this same box is the pan that has all the colors in it. And they all come with a cute little sign on it that says I'm unique. And all the colors are made with the highest pigment load possible and hand poured and dried to specific water retention levels. So it's got a cute little sign on there. And then they have the Daniel Smith logo on the front of these. Pull that off. Okay, and then I think one of the ways that will help when you're opening this is there is a little lip here that you can kind of put your fingers into, and also if you squeeze just a little bit on the front, that helps open the case. And then you can see this one has already got the pigment poured into it. There's only a couple where there's just a little bit of a gap where it dried back just a little, but everything else is very full up to the top of the little half pan there. And it does have a little bit of weight to it. So once you get all of that paint in there, that does give it actually not uncomfortable, but a decent amount of weight to hold on to. So this set has 15 colors, and all of the different boxes with the different cases have a little pamphlet like this in there. And not only does it list what is in each of the different sets, and then there's 1, 2, 3, so 6 total sets that come with paint in them, but it also has down here some information about how they pour them, and then information about each of the pigments. So it's a little color chart that lists their qualities, whether they're transparent or staining, if they're granular or not, how many pigments they're made out of. And most of the sets, from reading their information, come with pigments that are single pigments, meaning that if you go to make a mix, the mixes you make are going to be more pure color mixes, not as grayed down or neutral, because you're mixing fewer pigments together when you're making your mixes. So in this particular set, there are I think just 1, 2, 3 colors that have more than one pigment in them, and that would be the quinacridone gold, the permanent alizarin crimson, and the Jane's gray. Those 3 pigments have more than one pigment. Everything else is a single pigment. So I will do a quick swatch test and tell you what the different colors are in this one. And I am a huge fan of Daniel Smith paint. So they are not sponsoring this video. I am not getting anything extra to talk about these palettes and cases. So I will give you my my thoughts on it without feeling like I have to say I love them or don't. But I am a huge fan of Daniel Smith paint, and that is what I mostly have on my palette in my studio. I think I have, out of maybe 24 to 30 different paints on my palette, I have maybe 3 or 4 that are not Daniel Smith paint. So in this particular palette, we have Buff Titanium, which is not one I normally paint with. It's a very nice kind of creamy brown, and depending on how much water is in it, it can be obviously lighter or darker. And one of the things that I have always noticed about Daniel Smith pigment is they re-wet out of my palette just without any issues. They immediately are ready to use. And I don't know if you noticed there, but I just got it barely wet and it was ready to come out of the palette with a nice amount of pigment. And this is Hansa Yellow Medium. And so there it is, kind of full strength right out of the well there. And then I'll add just a little bit of water and thin it for you. And then this is Quin Gold. So there it is, nice and full-bodied, and then I can add some water and thin it. And I use Quin Gold a lot in my paintings. I have Hansa Yellow Light on my palette, not Hansa Yellow Medium, but that's a nice color. This one is pretty close to cadmium yellow. This is Parole Scarlet, and I do have this on my permanent palette, and I love this red. I use it instead of the cadmium red because cadmium red is now cadmium red hue, and it has more than one pigment in it. So the Parole Scarlet is a single pigment and a nice warm red. And I'll use it in mixes and by itself every now and then. This is Alizarin Crimson, permanent Alizarin Crimson, and it is a pigment that has 3 different pigments making it up. And I do use permanent Alizarin Crimson, just not for a lot of things. It's not one of my favorite reds, but it does a great job making a really nice black with phthalo blue. Okay, this is Quinacridone Rose. And Quin Rose is a nice cool red, very vibrant, kind of on the pink side. And I tend to use this a lot, so I would definitely have this in my palette. By the way, this is a piece of, this is my Arches block, Arches watercolor paper, or Arche watercolor paper, and just thought I would use that to test these. This is Ultramarine Blue, and, or I think it's just, yeah, it's not French ultramarine, it's just straight ultramarine. And there that is. So you can see, I think, that they are just loaded with pigment and they have a lot of vibrancy to them. The next one is Cerulean. Just wanted to make sure so I don't give you the wrong information. Nice. And a little bit of water. And then Phthalo Blue Green shade. Okay. And there is a mix, from what I understand, of granular pigments, non-granular, staining, non-staining, and opaque and transparent in these palettes. So it'd probably be a good idea to really look at the information and decide what you think you might want. That is Phthalo Green Blue shade. And Goethite Brown Ochre I have not used. And I do notice with the Primatech pigments, the green apatite and some of the other earth pigments, they are a little drier when I go to re-wet them. And I think that's partly something to do with them being a mineral, and they just don't quite re-wet as easily. But I do love the granulation of those colors and the vibrancy and the kind of the unusual colors that you get with them. This is burnt sienna, and next to that is the Indian red, and I know some people really like Indian red. I don't have it on my palette. It is an opaque color, and I prefer to use just transparent paint. And it is staining and granular. I do like granular pigments, but yeah, just don't tend to use Indian red. Raw umber is this one. Kind of a cooler browny green color. And then the last one in this is Jane's Gray, and this is a little bit different than Payne's Gray. I have not used this. I do like the look of it. It is a two pigment paint. It is a cooler gray, and it is semi-transparent, and it is granular. So that one is very interesting to me. I would probably want to play with that and see what all I could do with it. So then this is how I would probably work with it if I were painting with this palette and I wanted to maybe make a mix. Say if I wanted to make a green, I'd pull out some of the yellow and one of the blues. Maybe I'll use the ultramarine here. And this is how I work on my big palette too. So I would just get out my two colors and then do a little bit of mixing between them, and I can decide how much of each paint I want in the mix, and then I can work with it. So to me that seems just like a natural way to paint. I'm not, like I said, bothered that there's no division between the wells here. And because this is smaller and it's a travel size, it is something that I would just expect that I'm going to have to clean up every now and then. So if I wanted to make another mix and I don't want to get any green in my red, I can either try to come over here and just be real careful, or I could go get some more yellow and work with it. And then when I've run out of room, then I'll have to clean off the paint if I need to. So for me, I already know that the Daniel Smith pigments make beautiful mixes and work really well together. That is a wet and wet area, so I'll just drop some of the color in there. Maybe pick a new red to play with down here. And some blue. Okay. And so yeah, the paints are performing just like I would expect them to, and how I always see it. I guess I dropped some water in there, so it's got a back run happening right now, but that's normal for watercolor. And this is hot press paper, so it's going to have a little bit different look than what I normally paint on, because I usually use cold press, and so it behaves just a little bit different than cold press. So I will move this out of the way and pull out the other boxes. Let me pull this piece of paper off of here. And if you have not used a block is just pages of watercolor paper that have been sealed on the edges with some tape or like a glued binding edge, and then when you're done painting the surface piece of paper, then there's usually an opening in blocks that you can put something like a ruler into that opening, and then you can take that piece of paper off of there. And so it's a way that holds 140-pound paper a little straighter and very easy, compact, that you can travel with. So something like this, or if I were traveling, I might also take a sketchbook that is smaller pages that I could paint in as well. So this one is by Handbook, and it's got little softer pages. It won't handle as much watercolor or wet media type of things because they'll buckle a little bit more. And but I might try one of those. I have a drawing in here that I did a while back of pen and ink of Garden of the Gods here in Colorado Springs, and I had started to put some watercolor on it and never finished it. So with one of these coming cases, I might go ahead and put a little bit on there. So the next one is the floral set, and in the floral set is 6 pigments, and then they leave the spaces around on the outside edges of the case for adding your own pigments to this set. And so this one has cadmium yellow medium, quin gold, quin rose, phthalo blue green shade, cascade green, and green apatite. And I have not used, out of these, I have not used Cascade Green, so I'll be interested to see what that looks like. This is the cadmium yellow, and so very deep color there, nice and warm yellow. And it is, like I said, very similar to the Hansa that was in the first set. And the difference is that the cad yellow has 3 pigments in it, whereas the Hansa only has 1. So I tend to use single pigments most of the time, and so that's what I would go for, is the Hansa. This one is the Quin Gold again, and just like the other one, beautiful warm gold color, and all of the Quin colors mix really well, both with other Quin colors but also with other pigments. And then this is Quin Rose, and I can thin that was also in the first larger set. And phthalo blue, sorry, I'm not being too precise with these. Just kind of want to give you an idea of what is here, but not necessarily take too long on doing these little color swatches. And then this is the Cascade Green. And Cascade Green says it is 2 pigments, and it is staining, and it does granulate. It is semi-transparent. So that might be a nice color for like a forest or something like that, earth tone. You could mix the Quin Gold with the Cascade Green, although, actually just thinking about that, now we've got 4 pigments that we'll be mixing together here, and my limit usually is no more than 4 to try to keep things vibrant, because when you start mixing or not way too many, but if you start mixing more than 4, you can often run into issues when you're mixing pigments and end up with something that is more neutral or grayed down, and sometimes even make mud if it's too many pigments mixed together. So this is the green apatite, and this is the pigment that I really like from Daniel Smith. That is a Primatech color, and when it dries, it has some brown little specks in it, and it is very granular. I love the granulation of this, and I will mix it with ultramarine blue and other pigments and just get some beautiful mixes with it as well. So and I don't know if all of these are granular. The only one that's no, there's about half and half. So in this set, the cad yellow, the Quin Rose, and the phthalo blue are the 3 pigments that are not granular. And there is nothing in this set that is fully opaque. There are a few that are semi-transparent. And I think that's it for that one. So as you can see in this one, again, there are open little half pans, and they include the half pans. So like I said, you could fill this up, and then if you have a couple sets, you could take it out, or you could fill up just this well. And then that can limit you, because once you just remove the pan and fill the well, then you have to either finish that paint or somehow get it out of there if you decide to change things. So there's those, but this is a really nice basic set to do some mixing. So if I use the phthalo with the cad yellow, I can make a pretty intense, I can keep it on the cooler side of a green, or I can go more toward the yellow side, not quite as yellow as I want it, get just a touch more out. This one actually has just a little bit of a hill right there where the paint, when they were filling it, kind of left a little rise in the pigment itself, but so a little bit of extra pigment, it feels like, right there. Makes a beautiful little lime green mix. And so you can see, just by varying the two colors right there, I can get quite a variety of colors. So even if I only used these, I would have quite a few options. I can make a nice, let's see, where's that going? If I use the Quin Gold with the ultramarine, or the ultramarine, that's phthalo, not ultramarine, I can get a really vibrant, deeper green. And then also, if I add a little more Quin Gold to that, it'll be a little warmer. So it's almost sap green, actually, that mix right there. And then this is the rose. Let me get out just a touch of the phthalo with the rose. I can, not enough rose. So this is where I need to clean up the palette at some point. Okay, so there's a nice purple. And a little cooler, more toward ultramarine feel to it. And I haven't tried this, which is the Cascade Green with a little bit of the Cad Yellow. Nice. So a nice lime green look to that. Kind of similar to the phthalo, but maybe just a little variety in there. Okay, and so they do list that one as their Cottage to Gardens to Botanicals, their floral set. So then, let me move this one. This is the third set that they sent, and it is the, oops, let me see if I have one of the sides open. This is the blues. They say serene to dramatic blues. So let me get this open, and I'm going to just put a line on my page here. All right. So in this set, again, there are 6 colors, and they have a little bit of variety in the blues that they have in here. There's some that are a little more turquoisey, some that are more toward kind of your base blue, the cerulean here, and then they have some of their They have Sodalite Genuine, which is one of their Primatech paints here, and so is Sleeping Beauty, which is this turquoisey blue right here. And then, so in order, it's Sleeping Beauty is a Primatech, the Cerulean Blue, Lunar Blue, the Indigo, Sodalite Genuine, and Payne's Blue Gray. So I will just swatch these out right quick. And I have not played with Sleeping Beauty very much. I do have a tube of it. I just haven't really tried it. So it is going to be a granular pigment. It is semi-transparent. And it is not staining. And then this is Cerulean. I'm having to go back into that one a little bit. Okay. And then this is Lunar Blue. And Lunar Blue is a very granular, and it is two pigments. It is made up of a blue and a black. And so it does have some grayed down properties. It's not a real vibrant color, whereas these two are more vibrant. And where'd my paper towel go? There it is. The next one down is Indigo, and Indigo is going to be almost a deep black, depending on how you use it. So obviously here, straight out of the well, it's very dark, and then you could water it down and make it a blue or gray black. And this is Sodalite, and I really like Sodalite. It is also like Indigo, that it's a blue or cool dark, and if it's really heavy, a lot of pigment in there, then it will look black. And then you can water it down, and it is a very granular pigment again, and semi-transparent. And then the last one in this one is the Payne's Gray. So if you're someone that really likes to use a lot of blues and you want to experiment with some of the blues maybe you've already used, or just with some new ones, this is a really nice option, because then I could see adding some base colors, maybe a couple reds, a couple yellows, and maybe some burnt sienna, burnt umber, and then a few greens in here, and you'd have a really nice set to go out and have a variety of unusual blues that you could mix with those other colors. And so yeah, this is one that would be fun to play with and see what I like in here, and what mixes I might make with it. So what is the last thing was I was going to play with a few colors on here and just give you an idea of if you were actually out painting with it. So I will move this out of the way, and then kind of clean up my stuff here a little bit. So if I were going to make a set and just have something to quickly pull out of a bag, or carry just a small amount of paint, I think these would work great. This is a silver black velvet travel brush, and it has the cover right with it, so it closes up nice and small. If you ever buy this brush, you might notice that the lid is very loose, and so I actually ended up putting a little bit of tape around the back of the handle, so that when I open it up and I'm painting with it, it will stay nice and secure, because before I did that, it wanted to just kind of slide off of there very easily. So then I might also carry one of these little collapsible cups with me, and a bottle of water, and my paintbrush, something to paint in and one container with paint in it. I'm actually going to maybe play with a few of the different colors because I don't have these set up to be exactly what I might use for this painting. The other thing you could do is don't take this and just take the bottle of water and clean your brush right in the bottle of water. And this is just a small container that we had from something else, and it was a nice size, so I've kept it to use for travel painting. And I am not on location painting something because it is not real warm here in Colorado today, and I just figured since I had this and have the ability to use my camera indoors that I would go ahead and paint this. So I'm going to play with some of the blues that are in here, and I have clouds already sort of marked out in my sky, and so I'm just going to get the paper a little wet, and I don't know why I'm painting around the clouds because I want them to be soft edged, so I'm just going to wet the whole thing. And I think I'm going to try the lunar blue because it's really granular, and it's this one right here. I thought it would be fun to have kind of a moody sky back there. I might put a touch of the cerulean in it as I come down. So I think I'll get out, let me get this in my hand how I would use it. Get out some of the lunar blue and the cerulean. And if I were doing this on location and actually trying to paint with this, I'm not sure this is cerulean. It says cerulean in the manual for the colors, but it has a different look to it. Lunar blue, it says cerulean. Huh. Because when I first opened this one, this cerulean is a little different when I go ahead and get it out of the palette. Let me make sure I've got this one right. Yep, it says cerulean blue chromium. Ah, so maybe it's a different form. Yeah, this one's just cerulean blue. So they're a slightly different cerulean. So this is what I'm seeing. This one is a little more turquoisey. It's a little heavier bodied and more pigment in that one, whereas this one is a little lighter in color. Just a little bit different pigment. So there is a slight difference there. This cerulean is, let's see if it says on here. The first cerulean in the big case is PB36, and that's cerulean blue chromium. And the cerulean that is in the blues series is PB35, and it is cerulean blue. So whenever you're looking at pigments, don't assume that the colors are exactly the same, whether it's in the same company that makes those pigments or if some other company makes the same colors. And I'm going to have to set this down for a second and re-wet this. And again, this paper does not handle a lot of water, so I may have to hold on to it to keep it from getting too what am I trying to say? Getting too gosh, moving too much as I'm painting and buckling. There we go. I'm trying to think of too many words right now. All right. Buckling wouldn't come. So I'm just painting around the clouds and in the sky, kind of giving it a stormy feel with the lunar blue at the top. It's got a little bit of gray to it. And okay, now I can set that back down. So then I'm going to have to switch palettes, like I said, because I don't have it set up to paint this particular painting. And then I will use, I think I'll use the Quin Gold. I need to clean this. And if I were out in the field painting plein air, I may not have a spray bottle with me, so I would probably just get that wet. One of the things that I noticed about these cases is because they are plastic, they might stain a little bit, but you can use the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser will clean a plastic case really easily, and that cleaned up pretty good, so not an issue there. And so I'm getting out the Quin Gold, and then I think I'm going to pull out some of the green apatite, and I can kind of go back and forth between the two of those and just get some of these trees going. I also think I want some of the Sodalite from that first, from the blues, and I'll mix it in with my green to go a little darker. And I can try to make the rock color for these, the Garden of the Gods here. If you've not been to Colorado, Pikes Peak is a very well-known mountain range, or not range, but mountain that is in Colorado Springs. So I'm trying the Quin Gold and the Permanent Rose for these warmer rocks that are in Garden of the Gods. And I'm just kind of painting around the tree and bush forms that are there. And so I can get some really nice oranges just from those three pigments. And that's just my first pass, so I can come back and add some color to those if I need to for some different values. And a little bit there. I need a little bit warmer. We'll try to go back to just holding the palette like I might. So if I were in the field, probably the way I would hold this, and this is going to be a little kind of an issue just because of the fact that this is a double spread. If it were a single spread and I could just hold it like this, that would make it much easier to work with. I'll try setting it up on the edge of the palette. There we go. All right, so that would work for me. And so I'm going to get out a little bit of my red to go with the yellow. Okay. I don't want this to take too long. And then there are some paths and trails actually from the first set. Might be where I go into, what are you? The goethite. Goethite brown ochre. The goethite is a nice warm earthy color that I think would work well in those areas because there are some trails and things that run through the Garden of the Gods, and so that would work well there. Okay, and then I'm going to use sort of a mix of my greens and oranges for some of the land that is down in here because it's grasses and weeds and things that are growing, just a little bit of tone to those areas. Okay. And in the back are, not quite there, some other hills that are kind of changed color-wise due to the atmosphere. So I'm going to paint that in. Okay. And then I'll finish up with a few of the trees. So a little bit of my green apatite and the sodalite that I had been using to go a little darker. And then I'll just come in and get some of those put in. Okay, so the sketchbook that I'm using is, like I said, not great for this, but it's doing okay. And kind of get some of that finished up. And so the overall, my thought process or thought for these cases with the Daniel Smith pigment in them is that I really like the fact that you can add your own pigments to that, whether it's Daniel Smith paints, because they have so many different pigments. I think they have over 200 pigments that you can choose from, so they're a huge variety. And the versatility of being able to shift the little pans out of here and switch them around is really nice. I like how full they are. The size of the mixing area over here is fine because I understand when I'm working with a smaller setup that I'm not going to have as big an area as I might in other situations. And it is still big enough that I can do my mixing and have enough room. I'm not going to be painting a gigantic painting with these either, so it's adequate. It works, and I like the variety of their pre-set up cases, so that you can choose from something whether you've already used that pigment before or if you want to try some new things. There is some variety there, and it gets you started with a good amount of paint for what you're getting. So yeah, I'm happy with what these cases are, and I will be using them and experimenting with them. And I like the fact that they're very easy to clean up, and the size is nice and compact and easy to put in a pocket and carry with me. So I hope you have fun experimenting with these if you decide to get one or two. And if you have comments or questions, please leave them down under the video. I don't often do the product reviews, but I thought since I had received these and just thought I would let others know what they're like, that it would be fun to do one of these. So I hope this has helped, and if you have questions, let me know, and please follow along, and hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye.